So, not a lot to talk about today. Big picture-wise, obviously, we added a handful of new players. I think the big thing to complement our personnel department, our OCR crew, the entire organization as a whole, I think we did a good job evaluating and recruiting in this cycle. And that's been confirmed by this group of rookies that has been here for about 4 weeks now. So we've been very pleased. You probably haven't heard many college coaches say they're displeased with their new group of players, but I do think overall they've hit the ground running, and I think so far so good. I do think 32 new players, 7 of which will join us when we get to late May, early June. So 25 mid-years and a couple walk-ons as well. So much like most years, you're 25 to 30% attrition on the roster. And I think that we've been able to kind of work our way through this cycle. I think we're at a place where we've got more stability. And I do think that we're in a good place. So, again, can't compliment the organization from top to bottom. I always like to say everybody, it's in everybody's job description to recruit. Everybody that works for us is in the recruiting business, and I think we've improved our product. Obviously, the wins help, certainly to finish with some momentum. A little bit of stability always helps with some of these kids and parents, and I think that ultimately we're able to turn that thing and finish strong in recruiting as well. So we'll open up for questions.
How important was it to address the secondary during the second cycle, especially the cornerback spot?
Yeah. No, I think, and we're still, I think really pleased with that group of players as a whole. I think we signed 2 of the best safeties in the country and 2 of the best corners, and then Mike Caraway is a Tracy player from Southern Miss out of the portal, some height, length, speed, and production there. So I think the 2 safeties, I would argue their film, the height, length, speed, the production there, the makeup are really good. Ben, obviously with 13 picks to break the county record down there, and then it's in the DNA, right, the orange and blues in there, so I think those guys tend to play a little bit harder. And then Onus is, I think Onus is a very underrated player, in my opinion. I see some of these rankings. I watched that tape again yesterday just to make sure I was seeing it right. 6 foot and a quarter, 180, 85 pounds, and physical, two-way player. A guy can, plays offense, defense. He's physical. Guy can kick a 50-yard field goal. This guy's an elite athlete. So, and I do think that there's a good character foundation there. So yeah, pleased with that group as a whole. I think we could potentially add more players there. That's we have a few scholarships left. So on the defensive side of the ball, there's a little bit of potential movement there. So we could potentially add more.
The young receivers, obviously you had, Dallas Wilson a little bit later in December.
Yeah.
Sean Montgomery, flashed in the Under Armour a little bit. How excited are you for them and having them all on campus now, working with them in the spring?
Yeah, I think we added some playmakers at receiver, and I think obviously with DJ showing promise as a young player, I think there was some, that helped our ability to attract talent. The 3 rookies that reported early to go along with Muiz, J. Mike out of the portal. I think that's 5 really good players. Now you get Trey Wilson healthy, and then these other guys grow up. Tank, TJ, Mizell, you get K-Jack back from injury. I think you got a pretty good room there. So I do think you're spot on. We like to think of the receiver room as a basketball team to some degree, right? So we need some point guards. We need some 2-3 guards. We need a power forward, a center. we went out and got some height and length. I think with Dallas, J. Mike, Muiz, we needed that element, so I think we added that. And obviously VB3, Nashawn, two of the best in the country. So overall, one portal proven production there, and then obviously 6'2 1/4", 204, 10-3, 800 meters, 1,500 yards receiving. I mean, so really been pleased with what we've seen from him so far.
How do you assess the portal, Paul, this first period, and where you kind of want to go in the spring? And then relative to having the number 7 class now, it rose to that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fitting into your plan, because I know you want to build from the ground up.
Yeah, I think we positional needs. I think ultimately you're again, this is much like the NFL. Your draft class, your free agent class. What do you got coming back? What did you lose? I think it was an expensive cycle. To just be very blunt about it. So that affects your, strategy to some degree. I think now we're a little bit more boxed in, I think, just from a rev share component. So, there's things that contribute to that. But I think we went and got a punter. We were able to get an edge player, a corner, really a DB. I think Mike can play a lot of spots. And then I think J. Mike. And look, we haven't always signed the flashiest name out of there, but I think we've been pretty spot on, in terms of the production that we get. So we're hopeful we've done that, But Kofi's, off to a great start. He's added probably 12 to 15 pounds. Played really good against the 3 SEC teams. He's 4 3/4. He's 85 wing. A lot of length there, and then just really good movements, good athlete, can play in space. He'll have some special teams value. And we got him for 2 years, right? So gums-ish, in that little bit different, but I think I like him so far. He's brought a lot. He's a worker. And J. Mike, I'm excited about J. Mike. I think he's got a chance to bring some things to the table there.
You don't have to push so hard, though, in the portal. And
Yeah,
it's back to the fact that your class is 7, which is the highest I think they've had here in a while.
Yeah.
What does that kind of say about this kind of your approach and deliberate approach in some ways?
Yeah, look, I think we've committed to signing. This is probably our 3rd big group, really 4th big group of high school players. Our portal number has went down each cycle. I think, after the first month of the season, I was like, maybe I misjudged this thing. I messed it up. But I do still have conviction about it. I think young players at certain positions need time, and then there are some that are able to contribute early. So I think I think we've got competitive depth, I think across the board there. So, and look, we got some room. There's another cycle in the spring. We typically have gotten through spring ball, assessed the roster. What do we need? We try to address some things. Like Badger last year, I think we were able to get a couple Cormani, Zandamela. I'm trying to think off the top of my head here, but we added some pieces there in the second cycle that it proved to be beneficial for the team. So, look, you've got 4 opportunities currently to add players to the team, right? So we're going to use each cycle, take a good look at what we got, and then try to make good decisions.
I think the one you didn't mention maybe was Harrison Bailey. I think
Yeah.
You said you wanted someone who wasn't entirely wet behind the ears, has some SEC experience.
Yeah. No, I've been very impressed with Harrison just in the first few sessions. I think we had a gap in there, and I think that was challenging to add players to the team, given DJ, and the success he was having as a rookie. But yeah, I think Harrison that was a big deal. To get a guy who's played in the SEC, who's prepared as the backup or a starter for a long time, a good passer, accurate passer. And again, just recently played in the bowl game and was the MVP and played really well in the game. So I think some of the carryover, multiple systems, a lot of reps in the bank, and a very highly regarded guy coming out of high school.
Were you looking for someone from an intangible perspective who maybe would be willing to provide that mentorship for DJ and some of the other, young guys like Trammell that is now missing with Graham not being in the building?
I think it was a little bit more just about a guy who can compete with the other young players, compete with Trammell, compete with Aiden, provide some stability there. We like to have a certain number in that room, and I think we had Trammell was a little, didn't play this year, was injured. So we were looking for another quarterback, and I think we went down a lot of rabbit holes there, but I think we landed in a good spot.
How difficult is it to remain convicted to your process of building through recruiting as opposed to signing the shiny, flashy guy who's been there, done that?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we've went out and done that before. We're going to do it where we think we need to do it. I think I just walked by Caleb Banks in the hallway there. I'd say that one turned out okay. Think about Cam Jackson, Graham Mertz, Ricky Pearsall, Sabo Torrance, Montrell Johnson, Chim DK, Elijah Badger, Pup Howard. So Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, Triquez Bridges. I mean, so shiny,
Yeah. But is it the ideal formula to let your recruits grow into those starring roles?
Yeah, no, we look, I don't necessarily, I just think about putting together the best team each cycle. And look, you're evaluating, the film, the production, okay. Then you get into the measurables, okay. Do they fit within the position description? Do they have the height, length, speed, the mental makeup, the character, the circle of influence? And then now there's the budgetary component, right? So, you got this huge puzzle that you're putting together. So, I think that every cycle we're going to sign players that we think fit, and then we don't reach. We don't take one that we don't. We just go to the portal, or we go to February, or we go to the spring portal. We just keep moving and keep evaluating players until we find some that we think fits.
The retention process, how much of that was for you validation of the health of the roster and you had less guys into the portal than
Yeah.
years here? Just how much in your mind of that evaluation?
We're getting better. I mean, I think we have the resources to retain. I think that's number one. And I also think that we have relationships with the player. We recruited the players. We know the families. We know the dynamic. Typically, that's the challenging thing when you take over a program. It's like someone else established rapport and had relationships with the players you inherit. They're out there in college football, and then you're trying to establish trust. You're trying to evaluate them. They're trying to decide, hey, does he like me? So again, I think that we're through that. We've done the heavy lifting, and I think we're on the other side of that. I think there's 4 players maybe that were here when we first started. So, and they're some of our better players.
The decision to hold on to play calling, what went into it, and your thoughts on maybe the offense continuing to evolve and tailor to kind of DJ's strengths, you and the staff for this offseason?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're going to have some new responsibilities on that side of the ball. We're working through that, where we land. I think end of the year, I would say we could compete with anybody in the country just in terms of the way we were playing offense, defense, and special teams. And again, I think, the things that are on my plate, I think we've narrowed our focus a little bit. I think we've got good systems in place. We've adjusted workflow, delegated. I thought Russ did an exceptional job last year in a leadership role, running the unit meetings, being a huge, from an organizational standpoint, installation, scripting, input on the game plan. He was in every one of those meetings. I thought John Donovan brought a lot to the table from a situational football. We kind of gave him some ownership in that area, and he really did a nice job, I thought, throughout the year, week, and then on game day. And then I thought the assistant coaches, I thought John DeCosta was a good addition, and then obviously Jabbar, Rob, and Billy G, all their position groups really, I thought, improved and were productive. So continuity in system, I think, is important. Not only, I think, just helps the development of the players, and then certainly the quarterback position. I think it's the most important for the quarterback spot. So, we're going to be aggressive in this new model. I think now you can have more than the traditional amount of coaches. So you could potentially see us hire more coaches. So, I think ultimately we're still evolving, and I think as we approach the season, we'll settle into a good workflow there and try to continue where we left off.
What stood out to you about Vinny Sensieri?
Yeah, Vinny, been around Vinny as a player, and then obviously he's in this same network, same tree of coaches that I've worked for and worked with. His dad is, somewhat of a legend, as an NFL college assistant. His brother's the offensive coordinator at UCLA, so there's coaching DNA there. I think he had aspirations to do that. Couldn't get away from it. It's in the family. So, spoke to Nick about him, and he was very impressed with him in that year as a graduate assistant, and obviously worked with Carl Scott and Pete Golding, who obviously had worked with Coach Roberts and myself. 4 years with Belichick, Joe Houston, a little bit of carryover there. So I think it was a good fit. And I think, Will, obviously, the secondary, it was very evident that I thought they had a very successful year, in terms of managing the injuries, the production, the way they played down the stretch. So, but there's no limit to how many coaches you can have, right? So we need to offer as much expertise and detail and input, feedback as possible for the players. So to try to take advantage of the rules, bringing Vinny on was a no-brainer.
Will he assume some of the responsibilities that Austin had on the field on game day, and Ron still being in the body?
I think that's to be determined, yeah. I think similar mold, in terms of big picture thinker. I think just kind of can see it well, that type of dialogue. I think that could very well happen. Now, we haven't defined that yet. So, but, he's in that mold in terms of what he can become.
And then how could Ron's role evolve with the changes with the coaching staff and being able to add more analysts and allow him to kind of narrow his focus?
Yeah, well, look, I think we potentially here could hire another coach on defense, and let Ron, kind of walk around and much like we did the last 2/3 of the year, if that makes sense. So I think that's kind of when we started making progress. So I think just the expertise and the feedback and the having eyes on each position from a meeting, individual, I think that part was healthy for us So yeah, I mean, I think we're in the inside linebacker coach world that could happen. So we could potentially go down that path on offense as well.
Billy, when so many coaches are giving up play calling, like Ryan Day gave it up last year.
Mm-hmm.
What is it because it just creates a synergy with you and the quarterback that you're working with so much? Is it we know you enjoy doing it? It's part
Yeah.
of what you have done your whole career, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's what got me here. I mean, I think it's the way it's how I've become. It's how I've been a head coach. It's what's helped us make progress and win in the past. I'm confident it'll help us continue to do that in the future.
Tiresome question to be asked.
I mean, I'm beyond that at this point, right? So, yeah, I mean, we get it. I mean, we're going to always be. It's a production business, So my job is to get the team to win, and I try to make decisions that reflect that, and still have conviction about it.
If you ever got to the point in your career as a head coach where you wanted to hand the keys over, would it be more likely to be somebody that you groomed for the role like Russ versus bringing somebody in from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I think one cycle at a time. I mean, I think what I've tried to do is evaluate things as objective as I can be, and then try to. I think last year, as the season went there, I felt like we were starting to look the way we wanted it to look. Never going to make everybody happy. It's part of leadership, right? So definitely in this room, But, yeah, I know I would say we'll continue to make decisions that reflect the best interest of the team and trying to put the team in position to win.
The GM search, I mean, what are your thoughts about the candidates that you've attracted so far? Do you have a timeline in terms of when you want that filled?
Yeah, we're trying to wrap that up. I think we're close. Obviously, a very important position, and really it'll be a department more than a position. You'll see we're going to hire multiple people. And I think that one of those hires is pretty close to being done, and then I think the other is right around the corner as well. So very hopeful we'll get that done here shortly.
What are you going to call that job? You already have a general manager. Are you a capologist or?
Yeah, I think the most recent hire is, I think, Director of Football Strategy. I think it's a little bit more contracts, caps, analytics. We're a year away from having a lot of data, both in the rev share space and the marketing endorsement space. So we're getting ready to kind of stabilize the market to some degree because we're going to be using comps to reference. So I think that's been the struggle here the last since we got here, is like there's a lot of uncertainty about what is the market, what is real, and the evolution of the market. So, and certainly this spring semester was the most outrageous market of all time, right? So I think everybody kind of pushed their chips to the middle there before rev share starts in July 1. Right now, we'll see where we're at April 7th. There'll be some things there from a settlement standpoint. But yeah, we just say like we're getting this front office built out to be more strategic about the salary cap, contracts, rev share, marketing, endorsement, that pool of money that could become available, and then how you allocate the money becomes part of the evaluation process. And we have been living life that way. Although there's no rules, what we've tried to do the last probably 18 months is create our own rules in terms of how we've added players to the team. So not only the addition of players, but the retention of players. So I think we're kind of getting on the interstate. We're hitting that ramp just right, slide in that right lane here. But yeah, I think ultimately, we're getting closer here to hiring a couple really smart guys that can help us out.
Will Harris and the other DB, who's the other second? Who? No, the other, the other defensive line, your Chapman. There are some NFL jobs still open. Do you think those guys are locked in to being here in 2025?
Well, Gerald interviewed for the Bears job, right? So, look, I think I always encourage our guys if they get a chance to interview. Whether some may think I'm crazy, but I just think it's good for him from an experience perspective. Now we just signed Gerald to a new deal just a couple of weeks ago. So, look, I mean, we've lost 4 or 5 around here to the NFL before. So, I mean, I just think, to me, it's just like players to some degree. You're going to have attrition, and we made a move a year ago in that room, and Gerald came in and did a phenomenal job. So, same could be said for some of the other positions that we've had. Darnell left to go to Washington, and John came in and did a great job. So, look, the organization is the other roster, right? Like, it's the other group of people that contribute to the team, right? So you got to be ready to go. But I think it's a good thing when the NFL is trying to get your assistant coaches. I think that gives you a little credibility. And Chat is well deserved. I think he's an exceptional coach and has done a good job for us.
Everybody's been extended.
For the most part, yes. I mean, some of those deals are not done, but yeah, we're hopeful we can get everybody back.
What do you think of the Nebraska canceling the spring game? You're still having one, I said.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Because of tampering, though?
Look, I mean, I think to each his own, right? I'm either going to have coaches tamper with my players, or I'm going to have a fan base that's pissed off we don't have a spring game, right? So, pick your poison, right?
We
So.
talked about tampering in Destin. We talked about that at length.
No, I think it's a healthy experience for the players. I think it's great. Like I can still remember some of these rookies last year talking about, they're just blown away. Like that's the big, Joey Slackman says, man, that was the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of, right? So there is a healthy component to filling that thing up, playing a game, I mean, I think we play like 50 plays on both sides, right? So just that process of preparing, dividing the team, I think there's still a lot of positives there, a lot of pros.
What about what it means for the early enrollees too? Because obviously Jaden, had his game and it kind of carried over. Obviously DJ got his feet back there.
Yeah, it's good. It's confidence. It's running out there for the first time. I think they're just a little more prepared. They have that experience to think about from, April until the opener, and I think it's good for the rookies. I agree with what you're saying. I think that benefited both of those players, not to mention all the other ones that maybe struggle a little bit. We get to evaluate how they handle that environment. So, yeah, I mean, I think, to each his own. I think we'll see where we're at. I mean, where's our roster going to be at, when we get to that week and all that. So there's things happen. We'll see.
The next portal window, I assume, is the last one before a real cap.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect that to be even more expensive than the last portal window?
Well, I just think there's different categories of players, I mean, I think just depends on what you're looking for. I think, one of the worst things you can do is overspend and bring a guy into your, locker room to create issues. So, I mean, I think we're looking for fits, positional needs, and it's got to work out, I think. So I think it'll be an interesting cycle, though. But, there's a lot of players out there that you know, are looking for a home that, you know, want to play or we have relationships with from the past. So we'll just evaluate what's available and try to make good decisions there.
Coaches want to close that window? Is that correct? Coaches are pushing to close that second window?
Yeah, I think there's a
How would that benefit you guys moving forward?
well, I just think you get some closure, you know. Yeah, just you kind of know, like right now, we would know who we got. You know, it'd be, you know, right now we get married in January, okay, and then we kind of go through 5 months, kind of, you know, and then it's kind of like renewing your vows in the spring, right? Okay, so we just want to eliminate that, you know. Right. So try to, no. I hope you're not speaking from experience. So look, I just think that we want closure. We want to know who we're working with. You know, we don't want to get 5 months into the process of creating an identity as a team and then exit stage right, you know, and then I just think one cycle where we have attrition, we have addition, we add players, we subtract players, we negotiate with players, and then, okay, let's start our process of building our team and not have to worry about, you know, you got guys canceling spring games. That's a good example, like, because they're worried about that 2-week cycle that's coming. So, you know, I think for us, we hopefully we've built it right in the beginning and we don't have some of that. So it's hard to make them all happy, though.
Billy, with 1 month before spring practice to go, what do you want to accomplish these next 4 weeks? And are there a couple of guys maybe that you're looking at health-wise?
Yeah.
I don't know who it would be, but trying to getting them on the field.
No injury reports in January, Edgar.
But there are some key guys out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we do. We've got some positions. The secondary is a position where we had some off-season surgeries. Typically, you're going to have 8-10 guys that are modified throughout the off-season program, spring practice. You always got a couple that miss. But, yeah, I mean, I think it presents opportunity for some of the other players to get those reps. You know, this is week 4 of phase 1, and then we'll change gears on Monday. So I'm excited to get into identity, start introducing some football, start getting into kind of teaching our values and some of those things. Yeah, so it's been a good month. Our guys hit the ground running. We benefited from the early bowls, so they got a natural break there, and then they came back. They were hungry to get back to work. So good rookie group. You know, I think we got the right mix here. Veteran example and rookies that are excited to be here. So, it's a big, long, fast group and seem to be getting along pretty good and working the right way.
What do you think would be your biggest needs in the 26 cycle, position-wise?
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, I think we got a general number at each position without putting that out there for the competition. You know, I just think it's going to be very similar. I mean, we're plus or minus 1 of what we signed the first couple of years. Yeah, you're always 5 OLs, a back or 2, a tight end or 2, 3 or 4 receivers, a quarterback or 2, 3 DLs, 3 edges, 2 inside backers, and 5 DBs. Typically is what you're plus or minus 1.